So my first liquor that I ever enjoyed was Lafroig. My first whiskey I ever liked was Lafroig.
Yeah.
And so, the reason I liked it was because I drank it and I was like, oh, this is like drinking fire.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. It's like Legend of Zelda or something, you know what I mean? Like this feels like powerful.
Metal as hell.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, all right, that's kind of neat that you can drink fire because it burns and it smells like smoke. So all right, I can get down with this.
For some people, drinking neat whiskey is that to them. It's to slow them down, is so that they can understand that yes, this could kill me. I need to slow it down. I need to take my time. I need to respect the spirit.
Right. Yeah. That's why when you're talking about mixing rock candy and rye, I was like, oh.
Yeah. So sugar is one of those things that people add at the beginning or at the end to try and smooth things out and make them more palatable.
But you can't do that to make whiskey, right?
Not to make bourbon.
Oh, you can put sugar in.
If it's called whiskey,
you can do.
There's a lot of things.
You can put straight up sugar in it.
You just can't call it bourbon.
That feels like cheating.
Yeah. Now,
personally, no offense to anyone out there in the whiskey world who likes whiskey with sugar in them, and I'm sure I've learned this before on this show and probably had a similar reaction.
Yeah. Right.
But for those of you not watching, maybe you haven't seen all the episodes. Clearly, I haven't either. But but it just seems like cheating, I guess is the only word I have for that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe it's because like tea, people always put sugar in tea, and I wouldn't say it makes me mad. I'm not mad about sugar in tea, but I wouldn't put sugar in this tea. You know what I mean? Like it's fine if people want to do that. Just like if people want to drink a Manhattan, or I like Manhattans, you know what I mean, or whatever. But I wouldn't do it with really, really nice whiskey. Probably I wouldn't do it with any of the whiskeys we drink on this show. I mean, maybe a couple. But and it'd be good. But
adding honey and how you add honey, there's some things out there that people they're threading a needle.
Yes.
As to how they're doing that. So you can have honey infused wood staves that end up going into a finishing process.
Yes.
That could still technically be called bourbon finished with honey staved.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how they get around.
Well, I'm
Specialty
team
whiskey
not
product.
adulterating things in general. And are we doing it?
We're rolling, of course we're rolling. You want to do an introduction? Today we're going to be back with Chris Rice from 10th Mountain, and we're just hanging out here on our third episode of the evening. We're going to do a side-by-side with some single malts out of 10th Mountain. Sohan has some tea that he thinks might be appropriate. What kind of tea do you have for us today?
If you were to look at this wrapper, holding the upside down, like a chump. Okay, there we go. That's how it goes. If you were to look at this wrapper and you know how our coding system works, then you would know that this tea is Black Rain because it is a Shu Pu'erh, which you know because it has this dark field here. All these parts are dark brown / black. And then there's a gold bat and a gold ring, which signifies that is Gu Shu Cha, ancient tree tea made from these very, very old trees. So the older the trees are, the more powerful they are. The tea from them is more valuable. However, this was wrapped in the wrong wrapper. It's our fault. It's our fault because in this credentials part, we just copied and pasted the name of one particular tea of the many different Shu Pu'erhs that we make using this wrapper schema, and it also says the right name here. That would have it says the correct name. The Black Rain Ancient Tree Shu Pu'erh here, but they're not looking at that because this is a funny little thing that we added.
Yeah. And
this part is on every cake of tea that comes out of the factory. Is this part right here? This is it's like the nutrition facts. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's like it's got to be on there. It's a legal thing, and so that's the pressing factory's credentials and therefore the credentials of the tea. So because ours are, we're not criminally inaccurate. They're all very similar to each other. We just printed one of these many variations on there. And so it got wrapped in the wrong wrapper. Yay. So we're just selling them at a discount. So lucky you if you like. This is Manla Shu Pu'erh. It's not from the same place. It's from very close there. In Aishot, Nanwa Mountain is like tens of kilometers away from Manla. The tea that we just drank that was such a great pairing with those ryes that went in the whiskey barrel is Manla Sheng Pu'erh. Sheng means raw or alive. Okay. Shu means fermented or ripened.
Okay.
And in this case, it means fermented. And this is the same tea that we just drank, except that it has been fermented and it was never in a whiskey barrel. And it was pressed into a cake. It's a really fantastic tea. So I'm stoked that we've.
It's making me think of like single barrel picks that go to the wrong store.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's got somebody else's name on it, and and they're selling it at their store. It's like, well, we got this anyways.
There we go. This is what a cake of tea looks like. You got a little divot there.
Yeah.
You can see the folds, the pleats in the bag. This comes. They put
that's really cool.
The leaves in a bag. They steam the leaves and they press the leaves in this bag. So it's in this like burlap sack, and they're pleating it. They steam it, then they pleat it, and then they twist the little extra knot of material down into it. They put a big 15-kilogram stone on top of it. They set it on the ground. They put a big rock on top of it. They stand up on the rock and they rock around to make it even. And then it sits there for however long it takes to do a line of these guys until they run out of rocks. And then they'll pull all the rocks off, take them out of the bag, put them on a rack, and they're dry in like minutes. Just like minutes, they're dry.
Gosh.
And that's how they press a cake of tea.
I want to see White Castle making tea cakes with like the 5 little holes.
Yeah.
make them square.
That's funny.
That is funny. I don't know why that's so funny, but I think that gets me. How many tea cakes you seen on the show?
There's quite a few.
Thinking about that long?
That hole is just sitting there thinking like White Castle with a hole
There
from
you
the
go.
burgers.
There you go. You're on it tonight, Richard. You guys had some good ones. What do you say, puce? Puce. Yeah. All right. So there we go. I'm just gonna maybe get the camera on this to whatever degree it's possible. It's hard to do this at this angle, but I'm gonna do it for you, dear viewer.
Dear viewer, I'm really excited for experiencing like what I was telling you, like how the teas have made me feel, like and where I feel them. Is really just fascinating and just really cool. So I'm really excited to see the difference between this, if I feel a difference compared to the last tea.
Oh yeah.
Since this is fermented, the other was not. That's just I'm really enjoying this experience.
Yeah,
of what's happening.
It's like we got to try those 2 ryes, and the only difference was 3 years in age. Like this is the only difference is that this was piled up and wet down and turned like compost. And for like 40 days until it turned black and fermented, and then they it turned black and fermented. Then they pressed it into a cake. So yeah, the only difference between this obviously this one's pressed, the last one wasn't, but it easily could have been. Yeah. We do have pressed Monolashung. We decided to put loose tea in the barrel because we felt like it would absorb the fragrance better loose, and also it's going to be easier to put in and be more space efficient. Yeah, so it's never been pressed, it hasn't been fermented, and it hasn't been stored in a whiskey barrel. You can think of this as really the starting material that, if you think about, this would be like the white dog, that goes into the barrel. I know a little bit about whiskey at this point. I know some words.
We're learning. I'm learning a little bit about tea. Yeah, my tea journey has changed quite a bit over the years, and then learning the Gung Fu Cha is an entirely new process to me. So this has been a fun experiment.
No.
Or experience.
Both, And I went pretty heavy on the dosage here just because I like to... Shu Pu'erh doesn't get bitter. Remember how the last one was getting pretty bitter by the end? And I was doing that on purpose because I wanted to bring out that flavor. But Shu Pu'erh doesn't really get bitter. So you can make it really, really... And it gets really dark. So you can make it like you can't shine a flashlight through it thick.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do something approaching that. And this is one of the darker ones that we get. So Manula Shu, for those of you watching and want the dark tea, this is one of the darker ones that we carry. I'll do a wee little rinse.
A wee little rinse.
Cool.
I'm gonna get a little bit of more water going since I'm doing it. Throwing a bunch of water away right now. So yeah, it's fermented. It's gonna have a very different profile, and definitely the cheese is gonna be different. But it is the same terroir. It's from the same place, same master, same farmer, same region, same plants. Just been through this fermenting process. And then just like this, as this teapot's dedicated to red tea, this one I'm using here is dedicated to Shu Pu'erh. I've had this one a very long time. My friend Steve Odell, owner of Enthia Tea House. Look how dark that is already.
I would like to say
owner
that
of Enthia.
so dark.
Yeah, it's pretty. This is a rinse. You can give that to the fish.
The fish friend.
Fish friend.
Terry.
What's his name?
You named your fish?
Gave him a personality too. He's kind of sassy.
Oh yeah. He doesn't take shit.
He doesn't take shit from anybody.
Shit, yeah.
He takes tea.
He'll take tea.
Take tea. And then I'll give you a little sniffer. Ooh. Oh, buddy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you
almost
said you're
ready.
Opening
Ready.
it.
Yeah.
You're opening
There's definitely yeast living in this. There's a pretty complex microbiome in here.
Yeah.
Aspergillus mold. Aspergillus genus molds are the main. That's what's in koji, where you make sake, when you make soy sauce, when you're fermenting soybeans, aspergillus is involved. So not the same aspergillus. It's very, no one's inoculating this tea. It just lives on the machinery, the equipment, the mats that they use to process the tea.
Fascinating.
So it's just there. But yeah, it doesn't take, when a pile of leaves turns into dirt, that's what this is doing. So you've got to put a pile of leaves in your yard, and it sits there long enough and it starts to compost. It's going to be doing exactly what these leaves are doing. So I'm going to go ahead and give it get a nice thick little steeping out of this.
So Chris, you're going to be opening a bar or a restaurant in Tyler as well as being a brand manager.
Yes.
Are you a glutton for punishment?
Apparently. Yeah, I'm very excited for the bar. It's majorly a passion project for me. Like the cocktail and whiskey world has been a big part of my wife and I's journey, and getting to share that with people. And like I had a big goal of making whiskey specifically, but spirits in general more friendly to people, a way to approach them without losing the character of the spirit. Like you talk about sweet cocktails and things like that. I'm not a sweet cocktail person. I'm definitely spirit forward, and I want that spirit to shine. And I look at, all right, how can I take this cocktail and bring those notes forward and do some fun things, and creating a beautiful work of art through all that. So I'm excited to share that.
So Han, this got dark real fast.
I made it really strong. Like I said, it's if you're gonna do whiskey and pour, you might as well make it really, really dark.
That's nice.
When people go ahead.
I was gonna say, like it's like, it's almost mushroomy, and like I'm a big fan of like that kind of earthy just depth, and there's a sweetness like in the midst of it all. Like I don't know.
Yeah. When people come in and say they like whiskey and they're just getting a tea, this is the type of tea that I make.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool.
Yeah. Wow. Same notes. And this is the type of tea people would usually put in a whiskey barrel. A lot of the time, the ones that put in a whiskey barrel is this type of tea. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But
it's like a mushroom soup stock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like it's just, there's like a creamy characteristic to it. Like,
it's creamy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got another one of these Shu Pu'erhs that we call rain butter. We had another one we call cloud cream because of that quality to it, that creaminess to it.
See, here's the thing. I am someone who gets very, very sucked into things that I find interesting, and I don't need any more expensive habits on. Well, you may have created something.
Yeah. Don't ask me about teapots and all that stuff. It gets crazy when you get into all of the little accoutrements that you use to make it. Well, tell me about, speaking of things that you get really into, tell me about this here whiskey.
So single malts in general was my first foray into whiskey. And it was actually a Glenfiddich 15, which was a dumb way to start because it's very expensive, especially when you're first starting in whiskey. And my buddy gave me a pour of it, and it was over the rocks. And to this day, I will still go back. And I typically drink my whiskey neat. I just prefer it that way. But something about a Speyside whiskey, especially Glenfiddich, or even, I guess, Macallan's Highland, but still, they're very, very similar characteristics. And I go back to drinking it with a rock or drinking it over the rocks because it brings back that memory, that feeling of first getting into whiskey and what those notes were. And it's a totally different experience with those whiskeys over the rocks versus by themselves.
Yeah, I also like to smoke crack when I drink whiskey. Nothing
Same.
like a rock, yeah.
Nothing
Just
but just
one,
rock.
just one, but make sure it's a big
Just
one.
no. I freebase cocaine.
It's interesting, the regions of Scotland, because they're so arbitrary. They're like a valley in the middle of a river valley in the middle of the Highlands is its own little thing, but the islands are their own separate thing, but they're part of the Highlands too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep,
like
it's
what's
wild.
what?
This is, I mean, I'm a big fan of the American single malt category as a whole, and working on actually getting a definition. But what's fun about this versus like Scottish malt whiskey is this is our single malt, and it's aged in new American charred oak as opposed to a used barrel or a hogshead or a former sherry barrel or whatever. And it's just, to me, this is a good way for people that live in the bourbon world that want to adventure into the single malt world.
You picked the right tea. Man, this is...
I'm excited to smell these side by
Yeah.
side.
These two, this is this is the most classic of pairings. This is
Yeah.
the most classic of pairings is like whiskey, any kind of whiskey with Shu Pu'erh. And we can mix them too. We can make a little micro Pooski over here if you want to. But man, it's a nice whiskey. I like it. It's got something very different than all the other ones we tried. It's sweet. Whatever it is, it's this sweet, light sweetness, like angel food cake, like light, crisp sweetness.
There's a maltiness
write that
to
down.
it as well. There's like this
Yes.
a malt.
Ooh, what's the proof?
90.
Okay, yeah.
90.
Yeah, it's been a nice day of drinking non-cast strength whiskeys, reminding me
We'll do
why
that
people
next.
do that in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's got like the sweet butterscotch honey going on, but it's like that earthy.
Oh man.
It's like peat
Yeah.
moss in the garden.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, together it's like
Yeah.
it's like taking a honeycomb and like drizzling honey onto like a truffle or something.
Yes,
like that. It's
I was
like,
thinking the same thing.
wow, that's really good. That's
Because I always get like a chocolatey note in our single malt. And I typically, like at a high level, I'll typically, with these side by side, I don't really get this note, but my typical note with the regular single malt by itself is it's like if I took a Honey Nut Cheerio and I drizzled a little bit of like almost a milk chocolate cacao and ate it. And that's what it reminds me of at a very high level.
Right.
There's so much more going on. There's citrus notes and all kinds of stuff throughout it.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell I get really excited about single malt category. I get
It's
get
really
riled
nice.
up.
Yeah, it's really
This
nice.
one's fun. This one's also like, this is our most recent release of whiskeys. We've had it out for about 2 years in the market now, and it's done really, really well. For the Ascot Awards, it actually just went double platinum. It was best overall whiskey in Key West. It was just double gold in New York. Like this one's done really, really well, and it's really cool. You can see as even as our blended larger production scale product, it's not a large production scale by any means, but it has so much character, and it's just kind of different for the single malt category, in my opinion.
Right.
Like a little less of the stone fruit, a little less of the apples. Like it's got some more depth to it.
Yeah. I do get apples though.
Yes,
I do
agreed.
get apples.
Yeah. So, hon, you got me with the angel food cake.
Yeah.
It's like angel
That's
food
a-
cake with like a fruit compote.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
that, like almost like
And not
blueberries.
yeah, exactly. Not like like something light like a blueberry, something like a cute little taste, you know.
Yeah.
Not like cherry, not something like really like dark and like voluptuous like cherry, something more demure. Yes.
There it is.
Something more demure. Yeah.
I'm getting
I mean, that's what the word means.
Yes.
That's what it means.
I'm getting like a light green celery on the nose.
Yeah. That's fun.
And maybe kiwi?
Yeah. Because that
I'm getting
fruit is
something
yeah.
green.
Yeah.
Something green and sweet. Something light green and sweet. Maybe like a green grape. A green.
Ooh, I like
a half
that.
a green grape on a slice of angel food
Yep.
cake.
A very puce looking grape.
Very puce. Yes.
I don't want to use chartreuse because it's another spirit.
A whole
Yeah,
bunch
which apparently they're not making. They just quit. That's
There
we
you
had the
go.
discussion last time. Apparently they just stopped doing it. They're like, no, we got enough money. We're gonna stop making chartreuse for a little bit.
yeah.
We're monks.
We're monks. Who cares? We're gonna kill this bottle too.
There we go.
Hold on, let's give some to Corey over here. I see him.
Oh, I've got some.
Corey's got some.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
He started with that. That's right.
It's
So
Corey.
this one, I'm really excited for y'all's impression of this one.
Yep.
This is one of my personal favorite single barrels that was on my shelf.
Now, there was something about
thank
the
you.
store.
Yeah. Now, this is a store pick. So, Steve Akeley from ABV Network out of St. Louis area, Arnold, Missouri is where he's at, has a bottle pick store, and it's only barrel picks. It's really cool.
Wow.
They're doing some fun stuff. But he did this. This whiskey was actually the highest rated whiskey in his store, which is really cool.
See, this is what humanity could be. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If we quit playing and
Yeah.
the people who hold the reins of power would just be compassionate human beings, this is what we could do with our lives. Just have a
Yes.
store just for barrel picks.
Yeah.
You know, just really like get into something and not have to worry about making rent, not have to worry about all your bullshit, stuff you got to do to like be a business and like all the money.
Yep.
Just like be a little dude out there somewhere collecting barrel picks and just living your
Being-
best life.
Hey,
Yeah.
so
You know?
keep an eye on whiskeyprovisioner.com. I'm just saying.
Okay. We're going to do barrel picks?
That's the idea, is to get into barrel picks.
Oh.
There are stores that just get dropped barrel picks, and
Yes.
and it's like, here, this is your barrel pick, store number, whatever.
Yeah.
And there isn't any thought going into what's happening. There are different ways of doing barrel picks where you have samples of the different barrels sent out to the store, but there's also so many mix-ups
Yes.
that happen with barrel picks, where it's like you picked a specific barrel and they dumped a different barrel, and that one ends up going. So keep a reference, and I've seen people keep references. I've seen people mark it. I've seen people say, "Hey, send me
Yeah.
the barrel, the actual barrel, to my store, so I know that
I get it.
you know, that what I wrote on it is actually mine." So the barrel goes with the bottles. But I've also seen whiskey clubs where their barrel went to the wrong place. It recently happened to the Bourbon Junkies.
Yeah.
Their
I heard
barrel
about
went
that.
to New York instead of to
I
them.
would be pissed. What the hell?
Yeah, it's so much money that just.
I would be pissed.
We did was it a rum pick? No, it was a tequila pick, and it went to with our bourbon society. We do tequila. We try and mix up our spirits now because we've done so many. But we did a tequila pick, and it went. Our distributor sent it to the wrong place.
I'm sorry.
And they lost
I'm sorry.
the barrel.
Consequences? Who pays the consequences of this mistake?
That's the problem. What do you do? What do you do? I mean, distributors hold so much power over suppliers,
Yeah.
and
They really do.
It's you can't they make we
So
make
what-
pennies on the dollar.
But the person who was
Have you not had that happen in the tea world where you were supposed to be shipped something and you
yes,
didn't get it?
and the person who made the mistake pays for it. Even all the way over in China, no one that I work with would not be accountable for a mistake. That's a huge mistake.
Now, I do know that the Bourbon Junkies, with the error that happened with theirs, that went to another store, they were invited back to that company to revisit their release and find another release, but it's not their original barrel.
Yeah.
So they paid for this whiskey in advance, presumably, or at least
Yes.
some kind of down payment or something like that
Yeah.
for the production costs, and they've been curating it, and they put their own time and energy into overseeing it, presumably, or paid someone to do so.
Yep.
Right, and pick it out, and they're getting the wrong thing. So things I could think of what you could do is like, well, they got the wrong one, so fix it. Pay the shipping to fix it, or at the very least refund these people, for the mistake. The people who got it really shouldn't be expected to pay extra for it because they didn't ask for it. I just think that is such a huge error to make with such a big, expensive object.
Very expensive.
And I've also
It's
I've
shocking
also
that it
seen
happens at all, honestly.
very large manufacturer doing single barrels, and I'm not going to name any particular one, but the very large.
Check the comments, though. Check the comments.
Very
Check the
large
comments.
manufacturer sending single barrels of their product all around, and it's called Jack Daniel's Single Barrel. And you walk into the store, and it's like, this is barrel number 1, this is barrel number 3, this is barrel number 10, this is on the same shelf. And I feel myself that that a single barrel is there because somebody picked it. Somebody put their stamp of approval on it.
Yes.
If you walk into the store, the owner should be, or the employee should be saying, yeah, we went there, or they sent us these things, and we actually went through as a group, and now we're putting our stamp of approval on this one single barrel. And I think that's probably the better way of going about it. Our friend Irene Tan will even go in and do something that we saw at Andalusia, where it's like, oh, that's your single barrel, this is my single barrel. I wonder what would happen.
Pokemon battle.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wonder what would happen if we put them together, or we switched barrels. They dumped both barrels and then switched barrels, and they come back. Yes.
Whoa, that's something.
And then all of that ends up in Maryland in a store, hundreds of miles away from the original distillery.
Wow, I love that. I love that. That's so cool. That's what I mean. It's like when someone can like throw their passion and their love into being like really, really nerdy about something, and just the sheer joy of the pursuit of that thing, irrespective of money or whatever, that's what we're here for. That's what the human species is here for, I believe. And there's lots of ways to do that. There's whiskey, there's tea, it's whatever it is that you like. Just being able to pursue that to the utmost is, I think that's everyone should have that right. I think everyone should be able to pursue whatever it is that they love. Like
Single barrel's got a darker fruit candy going on in there.
This one, it's interesting beside this because I get way more like darker berry fruits next to the tea. Then by itself I almost get like a dark chocolate. But like when I'm having it with the tea here is just a really, really cool experience. It's opening new things in this whiskey, and I'm sad it's like this now. But it's really cool. I'm interested. It's obviously a higher proof than the other one, being a single barrel. If you had to guess, like what does it feel like proof wise? Do you say it's closer to like around what that rye was, around 100 proof?
I would say higher.
Yeah.
I mean, it tastes a little higher to me. 109 maybe? I don't know. Something around that.
That's really fun.
Yeah,
So-
it's not hot at all. It's not. It doesn't bite. The nose doesn't grab or sinker.
You're not like, oh god.
Yeah, it's
No,
like,
it doesn't.
The nose is lower. The nose is probably, it feels more of like 100, like a Wild Turkey 101 kind of feel.
Yeah, I'm out of my depth. I'm out of my depth. But yeah, it doesn't taste spicy. It's not blasting me with alcohol.
No.
I'm not like faithful ethanol from it.
Totally agree. First time I had this, I didn't know what the proof was. I had it up at the ABV bottle shop, and Steve was like, "What do you think the proof is?" And I'm within a couple proof most of the time. I said 107. It's 130.
Wow.
Yeah.
wow.
30?
You'd never think so.
No
Yeah.
No,
way.
you never think so.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't drink like it. It doesn't present like it on the
it's
nose.
so smooth. It's so mellow.
We proofed it down. It came out of the barrel at 158.3.
Wow. Now, is that the altitude or is it the dryness of the climate?
I believe it's a combination of the two. Having just the way that the air is thinner there.
Right.
So you're losing water quicker is what I feel like. From my impression, and what this is just observation of
Right.
kind of a guess game for me, but it just affects it. We have barrels that come out. We had a 9-year-old barrel. It's one of the oldest barrels that we had. It's 173 proof, so just wild. But it didn't present like, it drank hot, but it didn't feel like you tasted 100 and something that was more than 80% alcohol.
Right.
It's wild what that climate does. And we go into the barrel at 120 proof. All of our stuff across the board goes in at 120, and most of the time it is 125 to 150 is kind of the average.
Now that I've had a minute and I've drank some tea and I've drank some whiskey, the waves of heat going down my esophagus give away that proof now, way later.
Yes.
Not on the taste at all.
Yes.
It definitely tastes like a way, way lower proof whiskey.
Yeah.
And then you only really notice it because you get those waves of warmth going down. And this is the proof that Baijiu, which is Chinese liquor, is normally when you're like
Really?
130 proof. Not always, but you can go to any you're buying baijiu, you're going to like a market and there's a store and they've got these big ceramic urns, right?
Yeah.
And there's no brand. There's the name of the store and they're distilling it,
That's cool.
or their cousin or something up in the mountains distilling it and they sell it in the market,
Yeah.
And they've got these big ceramic urns and you've got literally they give you a literal Sprite bottle, right?
Yeah.
And they ladle with a plastic ladle out of this big urn of essentially moonshine, into a recycled plastic bottle, and then you just walk down the street and you can just you could literally just kill yourself with alcohol poisoning.
You could just die.
Yeah, you could just die. You could straight die. But baijiu can be really nice, but it is generally they're only drinking tiny little thimblefuls at a time. They have these tiny little glasses there to drink it out of because they'll drink it every couple minutes. They'll all take a shot together. But
it's fun going back to this and then going to the tea afterwards. The wood notes that settle as that pepper spice at the end, and then going in with the tea, it accentuates and calms that little bite, that spice at the end. This is always fun.
This side by side has been really fun, and going back and forth and trying it in different directions. I do that with cigars too. I love smoking cigars.
Oh, yeah.
And I with whiskey, I will do it both ways. How does the whiskey impact the cigar? How does the cigar impact the whiskey? And cigars were the thing that got me truly into Isla whiskeys and the smokier style peated or mesquite smoked whiskeys, like Colcacan. I'm a big fan of seeing the adventure of how they affect each other and the marriage of the two.
I'm glad you mentioned Colcacan. That's another high altitude, interesting American single malt spirit, and they also do apple brandy and apple brandy cask finishes. It's one of those ones that not a lot of distribution. How far does your distribution go? Because I'm seeing inside the stores. I know you're coming on as a guest, so I'm looking for your spirits, and I really don't see a lot in the local stores.
Yep, we launched in Texas end of July. Officially launched in Texas,
cool.
So that was cool. We are a few different places have us. Total Wine across here has the bourbon, both Bee Cave and the other location on the south side.
Brody?
I think it is Brody that has it. There are quite a few in the DFW area that have that. And then some of the smaller, more mom and pop style, privately owned, have our lineup that's available in Texas, which is the single malts, the bourbon, and our cordial, which is a peach, wild sage, and vanilla cordial. It's tasty with vanilla ice cream. But we also have a brandy, and I was really hoping to have some, and I did not have. There are 375s. It was top 3 this year from USA Today, which was cool.
Hey,
it's a Pinot Noir grape brandy, and it's from Smith Family Wineries is where we get the grapes from, and it's really good. It's really, really fun. And it was actually one of the first brandies that was I need to adventure into this world and see what brandy and what cognac and what that world has to offer. Armagnac, because I'm a sucker for an Armagnac finish. That Saints Alley Herald is one of my favorites. Blends and finishes that I've had in the past few years. It's just so good. I had batch 1 and 2.
You've got a very large region that you're covering. How do you spend your time, and where do you go to try and advocate for people to try 10th Mountain? Because going to multiple states, it's hard enough just to do Texas.
Yes.
I'm in Austin and San Antonio most of the time, and it's still quite a stretch to hit multiple stores. I'm doing 6 or 7 tastings a week. How do you manage your time and get around to, because there's on-premise, off-premise, in liquor stores, and going to bars and hotels and festivals.
For sure. So it's really a learning process, and we've instituted this a couple different things. we're working on an affiliate program, but we also have a brand ambassador program where people that like are interested in the brand and like what we stand for and all that sort of stuff, they can get involved, and they can earn a little bit extra side cash to, you know, go do a tasting here, or if they go to a local store and they're like, hey, I'm helping out this brand, but I also really like this. I thought it'd be a good fit. What do you think? If that store picks it up, you know, they can earn a little extra scratch on the side that way. And you know, on top of it, it makes it a little more manageable for me. But growing that program is kind of helping, but it's interesting, and it's been a big learning process stepping on board. I was in sales before this in a different category. I worked in the roofing space actually.
So
Corey
knows about that.
I sold to roofing contractors. I worked for a company called The Catch-All and sold this product to roofing companies. And I just literally
pick up nails.
It catches the nails on a re-roof. It's
Hey,
literally a net.
I know about that because of Corey
Yeah.
talking to me about his roofing clients and how apparently that's a really important part of the job is picking up your nails.
Yep. It's a whole thing. So it's a cool product. It works well. I believed in them, and I still do some side stuff for those guys. But that I was all 50 states, and I was the only salesperson.
Fuck
so
that.
it was crazy. Like I was developing their outside sales program, and that's a lot. Like because you have to figure out what works. And they spent a lot of money on the marketing side, and we're very, very good at it.
Right.
So there was a lot of inbound stuff that was coming in, and a lot of e-commerce. And from this perspective, going out and being a craft brand that can't afford to have, like Sazerac can't have, 20 reps in one state,
Right.
And that's awesome that they can do that. I have a friend that works for Saz in East Texas area, and I'm like, you get to build all these relationships
Right.
with your stores.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't build as close relationships as I'd like to with some of these, but there are
It's just a
stores.
resource issue.
Yeah.
It's just a resource
Yeah.
issue.
It's definitely like a learning process and a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails and stuff like that. But it's there are certain stores that you can kind of get in with, and you start building those, and that kind of helps you expand. Is kind of what I've learned. But it is a large territory. Texas in itself is a monster.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Isn't Sazerac like 100 years old or something like that too? It's like from the 1930s or something like that?
Yeah, they've been around for
Yeah.
ages. I mean,
Yeah.
they're up there with like Diageo and Campari Group and.
So I got a question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how passionate are you about catching roofing nails?
I'm pretty passionate about it. I worked in that space, and that was literally what we did, was sell a product to help alleviate. I believe that there is no way to completely stop it, but there are ways to alleviate it. Because our roof was done when my wife bought the house in 2019. And no kidding, last summer I walked out in my backyard and there were cat nails in my backyard.
Wow, I didn't expect you to have such a thoughtful answer to that. That was kind of like a joke, comment. But that's I guess it makes sense if you've actually been affected by it personally. Okay, how much more passionate are you about whiskey than roofing nail catching?
Oh, way more passionate about this. This is like we talked about earlier, a feeling.
Yeah.
You're telling stories. I was telling Richard and off camera just about how much this affected. This is a memory that that's gonna become a core memory for me. This is a new experience, and experiencing tea in a way that I never have before. It's something I'll always go back to, and I feel like whiskey brings that for people.
Yeah.
There are so many memories in my life that are centered around this thing. Like I hunted down a bottle that had from Smoke Wagon that had my dad's birth date on it, and like kept those types of
nice.
things. It's like really special things like that. I think whiskey just offers such a story. Everybody has a story that involves whiskey, and I believe spirits in general. There are things that you remember.
Yeah.
And it's the first night my wife and I met. We were literally sitting on her living room floor with a glass of TX blended, which I'm not a fan of. Not my jam. But it was her first whiskey that she really enjoyed. And we sat down and we connected with that, talking about the British game show 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown.
That's a good one, yeah.
And that's what we go back to. Like that's a very massive memory for me in my life. And there's still whiskey involved in that.
Yeah.
So sales is all about having a solution to somebody's problem.
Yeah,
It's not about the cold calls and I've got this thing and you need to try this thing.
Yeah.
It's I've got the solution to something that you need to have here.
Sure.
And if you go to a tiki bar with a whiskey, you're not going to get the reception that you're looking for. If you're going to a large corporation, you're probably more likely that one of the people on the board is a fan of what you're doing.
Right,
Yes.
You know, and that's going to be your introduction. So sometimes it's just that right place, right time.
Yeah.
Timing is a big thing. Trying to get knocking on doors and walking in and cold calling. You know, it's like I think this is actually something that will work at your place, and this is the reason why.
Yeah.
And leaving samples behind.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of you know, just letting them breathe.
Right, and you know, for me, speaking for me, you know, we sell tea. That's
Yes.
something we do, and really letting the product speak for itself and telling the story is a big part of that. Chris,
Yes.
cheers to you. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
out
you.
here. I really appreciate
Cheers.
you taking the time to make it all the way out
Absolutely.
here from Tyler.
Cool.
Thank you. Likewise to Richard and Corey for coming out and making this show happen.
Yes.
Well, looking forward to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I gotta roll. I'm taking care of that baby.